Dave, I am so happy to have you on the podcast. A while ago, this year though, I had Rebecca St. James on, and I
Uh,
realized in doing that you are a mutual friend and that of both of us. And that's what made me think like, I have to reach out to Dave Stone and have him back on the podcast. I want to start here. You told a little story of when your children met Rebecca St. James, and here she is. She's like this recording star. She's like so famous, but she didn't act like that. And I want you to weave this into why is humility such an attractive thing to teach
mm,
and show to our kids?
yeah. First of all, it's great to be back with you, Arlene. You know how I feel about you and your husband, and your family, and so thank you for the difference that you're making. And I'm thrilled that you have a podcast that is encouraging Christians, parents to be exactly who God wants them to be. So thank you for diligently doing this. Now, and I love Rebecca. We love Rebecca. She calls us Uncle Dave and Aunt Beth, and she is as good as they come as well, and comes from a great family. The question that you were asking about, remind me what it was again. Where?
Humility. Why
Oh,
is humility such a good thing to teach our kids?
well, Rebecca is great of an example in this area as I know. The juxtaposition of the time she met our kids for the first time and they met her is that we had someone else who had been at our home, and all she did was talk about herself. And all she did, and we feel like we got great kids and we want people to meet our great kids. And she did not ask any questions, had no curiosity about her. Instead, it was all what was going on in her life, her accomplishments, what the project was that she was involved in. And so it was rather strange when within a 2 or 3 week period, Rebecca was at a meal with us, and she took such an interest in our kids. It makes me choke up thinking about it because they walked away from that feeling like they were so fascinating to her, and they had a friend for life in her. And so they all love her. But the reason they love her is because she could have talked about all her accomplishments, but she didn't. Instead, she turned the spotlight on them, and as a result, they would do anything for her. But yeah, humility, teaching
Yeah.
that trait in our kids and in our grandkids is so important. And when we hold up those role models for them and say, why do you think it is that you love them? What is it that makes you want to be around them? It always comes back to the fact that they're humble. They have a spirit that it's not look at me, but instead it's putting the spotlight somewhere else.
I remember as a kid, I was super shy and I didn't want to go to kids' church. So I sat with my mom and dad in big church. And finally, by the time I was in junior high, my mom and dad, they're very merciful people, but so they probably should have pushed me a lot sooner. But in junior high, they pushed me out and said, you have to go to youth group. But my mom would say to me, because I was so afraid, right, to meet the people. And she said, just look for someone else who's standing there by themselves and be their friend and start talking to them. And that was the advice that really helped me cross that bridge. And I think when we teach our kids, whatever question someone asks of you, you just ask it back of them. And then all of a sudden, they're like a really good conversationalist and they're really set apart. I remember someone at my church said to me, oh, you have the most amazing children. I was like, why do you say that? And she said, because they asked me, what's going on in your life? And she couldn't believe it.
Yes,
So it's
yes.
really that simple.
They're
It's
not
that
in their
easy.
own little bubble and their own little world, and they can
Yeah.
talk to adults. And we used to, whenever we'd have company come over to the house, we'd say to the kids, you have to have 2 questions. What are your
Mm.
2 questions? Are you ready? Have you got them prepared? And I mean, especially the youngest, when we would finish the prayer for the meal, boom, and just start right into their
Got
question.
the questions.
Hey, let's give them a chance to breathe. Let's dig a
Right.
little. So it took some training, but the concept is
Yeah.
put the spotlight over there and make certain that you're asking them, because we want to know after they leave, what did you get to know about them?
Yeah. It's beautiful. It's such a wonderful thing to instill in our kids. So, if you've never done this before, if this is a totally new concept to you, this is something so easy that you can start today moving forward. I want to talk about your son Sam and take us back to when you had a small group in your home. You know, you're pastoring, you're the godly man and everyone looks up to you, and you had this very good teaching moment, I think, for all of us. Take us there. What happened?
I think the one you're referring to, we at the time we had a Bible study at our house of people that were in their 20s, and we had about one third of them were non-Christians, one third of them were baby Christians, and one third of them were pretty committed. And so it was one of my favorite mixes that we've ever had. But they were all in their 20s, and Sam was probably at the time around 12 or 13 years old. I don't remember. And boy, he looked up to them, Arlene. There were some athletes in the group. There were some people that were just had great personalities. He loved that group. And so he would be right in the mix with them. He had responsibilities of helping them park their cars in the right place. Every first time visitor, he was showing them around, giving them a tour. He would connect them and introduce them to people. Those were his jobs. But one night before we started, I said something about Sam in front of some of these guys that he loved. And I made a joke about a girl that he liked. And I forgot. I don't even remember what it
Yeah.
was. He probably does remember. But they all laughed. And see, I'm going to be crying through this whole podcast with you. They all laughed, and he kind of chuckled. But I noticed he kind of pulled himself away and kind of excused himself quickly. And then I didn't see him, which was very unlike our typical Wednesday nights. And I started the lesson, and I got about 5 minutes into it, and I said, "You know what?" I said, "I got to take care of something." So I went up his room. His door was shut, and I knocked, and I think he said something like "Go away," you know.
Right.
And his head was buried under his pillow. He was probably 11 at the time. And I said, "Hey, I owe you an apology." And he said, they all laughed at me because of what you said.
Oh.
And I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "You know what? I should never have gotten the laugh at your expense." And yeah, he's going into middle school at the time. And so they're very sensitive in those settings. And I probably didn't sense that or read that real well. But I went back downstairs after I said, "You forgive me?" He said, "I forgive you." And, those red eyes you can tell have been crying. And so now I'm crying. So I go downstairs and resume the lesson. And then before I start the lesson, I say, "Hey, I need to tell you guys what just happened." And I owe an apology to my son. And I apologize to those guys that heard me say that joke, making fun of my son and his girl that he likes.
Right.
But it ended up being one of those things, Arlene, that it really ministered to the Bible study group. And I have had several of them come back to me and say, "I'll never forget the night when you apologized to your son and you came back. You left Bible study to do that in the middle of your lesson. You came back." And if we don't model for our kids what it's like to confess our sins and to ask for forgiveness, if we don't model that for them, then they won't have that relationship with their God, who they need to apologize to and confess things to and ask for forgiveness. And so, in some way, it's an opportunity for us to model that relationship that we want them to have with their Heavenly Father.
And I think all of us could say we would have so easily done the same thing as you, make some kind of comment and not think a thing of it, right? And so part of it is being careful in what we say, apologizing, because we're human, we're going to say the wrong things. And you did it quickly. You didn't just let that sit for hours and hours and days. Right when you found out, right, that something is wrong, you acted. And I think that's such a good example. Talk to that, you've got the new podcast, Pastor to Pastor with Focus on the Family. What Talk to that pastor's family that's just struggling because it's like the kids have to be perfect. I mean, you've gone through this with your 3 kids. The kids have to be perfect. They're the parent, they're the pastor's son. How do you give these kids an authentic relationship, authentic faith without feeling like this fishbowl thing?
Sure. And the fishbowl thing is hard to get away from because whether it's a small country church, it really doesn't matter what
Yeah.
size the church is. It is a fishbowl, and everyone kind of knows that's the pastor's kids, and that is a weight that they didn't ask to carry, but it's one that they have to bear. And so we would always try our best to find joy in ministry,
Mm.
and we wanted them to not resent the church. We wanted them to make certain that they found a place that they could serve and that they could be involved. And we also wanted them to know that really ministry and serving the Lord is fun. And
Yes.
so, I mean, I actually tried to make my office for my kids.
Oh,
And so when I had a little office, I just had big boxes that had each of the kids' names on it. And so whenever they would come to my office, I'd say, hey, you might want to check your box, as we'd be getting out of the car. Oh, man, they didn't know what it is. So my secretary might have put a pack of gum in there. Or somebody else might, I'd tell a staff person, hey, would you write a note to my kids?
oh,
Put something in there. So there'd be something that they could look forward to. And it made them say, oh, I'm going to have fun while I'm there. The other thing is they have to be there so much that when I became lead pastor, I kind of had it designed so that my kids would want to spend time. So I spent a lot of Saturdays over at church. And so I designed it so that my son could be in a room that was right next to my office where he could watch sports on TV. And he'd come and he'd spend all day Saturday. He'd be right in the middle of worship and all those things and meeting people and hanging out with folks. But I wanted it to be a place that they could feel comfortable. As far as the fishbowl piece, one thing that I have learned is that whether we like it or not, our kids get that identity of being labeled as a PK. And we have to understand that there will come a time when they have to embrace that faith for themselves and they can't just go off of their parents' faith. And so I try to always encourage them in the strengths that they have, try to encourage them that God could use them in a variety of different ways, and just to make certain that they're using their gifts for Him. But don't grow weary, don't grow tired, and point out the really cool things because they'll never point those things out to you. So, I
right,
mean, my kids would always say, Arlene, oh man, it's because we're the preacher's kid. That's why we can't go to that movie. And we'd say, oh
right.
no, it's because you're a Christian. It's
Mm.
because you're in a Christian home. You're in a
Yeah,
Christian
yeah,
family. That it has nothing to do with being the pastor's kid,
yeah.
and helping them to understand that distinction. But then pointing out the things that when somebody gives you great seats to a college basketball game and you
Right.
are together, I would make certain to put my arm around them and say, pretty tough being a pastor's kid, isn't
That's
it?
right.
And just try to continually remind them
Yeah,
when they would get an opportunity to do something that maybe other kids wouldn't. I want to point out, okay, that's because you're a ministry kid.
yeah. That's why you're having dinner with Rebecca St. James. Like, that's kind of
Ex-
a cool deal. Yes,
Exactly.
yes. I
We
love
don't
the
do a
idea of
lot.
Go ahead. I
No,
love the idea of the boxes in your office because a stay-at-home person that's working from home, they could I could totally, wow, I should have known this when I was an author and my kids were tiny. I could have had boxes with their names and little things. I love that.
it was the tiniest gifts in there,
Yeah,
Arlene. It wasn't anything earth shattering. It
yeah.
might be a $5 McDonald's gift card, that I put in there. And then they look forward to, okay, when can we go to
Yeah, when are
McDonald's
we
and get an
going?
ice cream cone, or whatever it might be.
I love it. It's the intention, it's the thought. When your church was going through a building fund, your son Sam made quite an audacious, like a promise of what he wanted to give.
Oh,
Tell us that story.
yes, the pledge that he made.
Yes.
That's a all of our kids are generous and
Yeah.
and they were were very proud and pleased that that has transferred over into adulthood with them as well. But Sam, he would, that particular story was that he made a pledge to a campaign at church where we were building a youth building, and we wanted everybody in our family to really wrestle with it and pray about it. And he came to me and he said, this is 18 years ago. He said, I made my decision. Okay, what is it? I said, well, I'm going to give $200. I'm going to pledge $200. I said, buddy, it was, his allowance was $5 at the time. And I don't even remember how often he got it, but, it was going to take up all of his allowance, and everything that he got was going to go to that. I said, dude, I just want to make certain you understand this. I said, if you commit $200, that is all of your allowance money. That means no baseball cards. It means nothing that you can buy that you want for this. I forgot if it was 18 months. I think
Yeah,
it
for a
was.
long time.
Yeah, and for a kid,
Right.
they don't have a concept of time.
Right.
So I'm trying to explain this to him, and he looks back and says, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm good with it." And so then Beth and I are like, okay, should we come up with give him some money back toward it? Should we do, something that lessens the lesson for him? I don't know how you spell the lesson.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, we'll leave that to somebody else. So sure enough, we didn't say, we just went with it. And every week he would put his allowance money, all of his allowance money, in at offering time. And about 2 months later, I was speaking at a men's retreat in Dallas, Texas. And this makes it even funnier. It was an a cappella church, a non-instrumental church. Okay, so they didn't use piano, they didn't use organ, they used no instrumentation. I was speaking for a men's retreat. They said, "Hey, your son, can he come with you?" "Yeah, he's going to come with me." "Yeah, great. Could he give his testimony for a few minutes?" Or I said, "Well, he's like 10 years old. It's not the sex, drugs, and rock and roll testimony, So I said, we'll get him to do something. Yeah. So he writes a little testimony that's all of about a paragraph and a half. And then he says, "I'd like to do a rap for you if I can." And he said, "I've written a rap on David and Goliath, and it tells the story of David and Goliath." So here's 800 men. He does this rap. The place goes crazy. They give him a standing ovation.
Oh, my goodness.
And the preacher comes to me on that Saturday night and says, "Hey, do you think Sam could do that in our assembly tomorrow, both hours?" I said, "Well, I know you all don't like instrumentation. Are you sure you're going to be okay with a rap?" He said, "Yeah, it'll be fine." So he did the rap to open the service. This church of 5,000 people. He did both services and didn't think a whole lot of it. A week later, he got a check for $200 in the mail, the exact amount that he had pledged. And I never told the preacher about what had happened, what his commitment was. It was just a God ordained, God incident of God saying to a 10-year-old kid,
Right.
"I see you. You can't outgive me." And he learned that at an early age.
That's incredible. And I'm sure that just cemented in him, like, you can't outgive God. Like, that is incredible. To the penny. God does this. God does
Totally
this.
out of the blue. Totally
My
out of the blue. He
goodness.
gets this letter, written to him from the pastor. So pretty cool.
You are standing on the other side with adult kids. Some people who are listening, they got their kids in diapers, they're in preschool, they're battling over video games, they're depressed and anxious. Both the kids, the parents, they're just going through it. But you're on this other side enjoying life with your adult kids. Can you give us that hope to, like, what we're doing is not in vain?
Yes, yes. And thank you for teeing that up so well, because you said it. It is worth it. It is worth it. The tough season that you're in, the diapers, you will be out of diapers soon. Hang in there.
That's
And then
right.
each stage, each phase has its challenges, but it also has its fulfillment and its rewards. I mean, we look at it now, and there's times when we wish we could go back to some of those years
Yeah.
because you know how fast they go. You've experienced that. So enjoy every season is what I tell people. And if you go through that stage of discipline, and you go through the stage of training, and you go through the stage of coaching, eventually 18, 20, 21, you enter into this friendship stage if you've gone through the other stages. And it is incredibly fulfilling, and it is so, so much fun to see the principles that you have poured into your kids now being passed down by them to their children.
Wow.
And the grandkids, someone said grandkids and grandparents get along so well because they both share a common enemy.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's truth to that or not,
Yeah,
but
right.
we love every minute of it.
Yes. In your book, How to Raise Selfless Kids in a Self-Centered World, you have this quote from Tertullian, who is a second century theologian. And it says this, and it's about disrespect. Because I think what you're saying is if you go through those stages and you are raising respectful children, you're going to get respectful adults that you really like being friends with. And the quote is, he who lives to benefit himself. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. He who lives to benefit himself confers on the world a benefit when he dies. So,
Mm,
in other words, if
wow.
you just live to benefit yourself, and this was second century, kind of sounds like today, if we are raising kids who are just living for themselves, just living for pleasure, just living for amusement, looking for the easy way out, they're not going to be giving a whole lot to the world that God created them to be in. Talk to us with just that word of warning of not squandering this time or
Mm.
not allowing disrespect in the home.
Yeah, there's two pieces there. There's the disrespect piece, and then there's also the honoring others above yourself,
Yeah.
and they go hand in hand. And if you are honoring others above yourself, then the disrespect kind of fades. It kind of evaporates. If you're constantly, striving to teach your kids, oh, you know what, we treat that person with respect. We don't run through the restaurant because you see that older person over there. We want to respect that person, and they come around carrying that tray, and
Right.
they can't see you, and or you're going to knock them over and break their hip, and that's not a good thing. So, always talking about the respect piece of, the New Testament principle of honoring others above yourself, and that's tough in our culture. I think it was in 2013, there was a new word that was introduced into the dictionary. It had reached the point where all of a sudden it could become a part of our language. And you know what the word was?
I'm going to guess selfie, but I'm not sure.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
It's selfie.
Yeah.
Selfie appeared in the dictionary for the first time in 2013. I don't know why we call it that. I guess it's because narcissist is too tough to
That's
spell.
right. Narcissisty. It doesn't sound as cute.
Oh, let's take a narcissist. Yes. But that's what our culture says is everything comes back to you, and it all revolves around you. And you've all been, everybody, your listeners, you've been at a table at a restaurant, and you've looked over and you've seen the 18-year-old girl that takes 17 pictures of her food and herself trying different poses, and it's all to find that one picture
Yeah.
that makes her look just perfect. So the more we can teach our kids to take the camera, the phone off of yourself and put the focus on others, we're honoring Christ when we do that. Jesus said in Mark 10:45, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. So if we can try to approach with our kids, okay, what are ways that you could serve someone today?
Mhm.
Or as you're
Yeah.
dropping them off for school, how
Yeah.
can you shine your light today? How can you be an encourager to someone? And my wife, when she would pick up the kids at the end of school, they get in the car and she'd say, "Okay, I want to hear, how'd you encourage somebody today? How did you encourage someone? How did you shine your light?" And so now, if they're younger kids, it becomes a game, you know, and and you've instilled that in them, and it's something that will bear fruit for years to come. So do
Yeah.
not grow weary in doing
Yep.
good.
And it's so good you do it in a fun way, like, your family is fun, so it's fun. It's not this like, "Well, how'd you shine your light?" "Well, you better go back out there and shine it better tomorrow." Right? It's not that kind of
Yes,
feeling, right?
it's
So
great.
it's
It's a
so
great
it
point.
it's gotta go together.
And if you've taught your child to serve, then they will notice that in other people, or they'll say, "Hey, guess what? Did you know that somebody else is trying to shine their light, or somebody else is trying to encourage people too? Because they encouraged me." And it starts to stand out to them because you've placed a high value on it.
That's a really lovely way to help our children look for spouses, look for who's really serving the other person. I mean, that is a really good thing to ask, a good question to ask.
They say that that is one of the attributes that the spiritual discipline that carries the most weight as far as whether a child will take their faith from childhood into adulthood is if parents have introduced them into service opportunities
Wow.
and service projects. That's why I always encourage people, take a different type of vacation some year
Yeah.
and go on a 4 day or a 6 day mission trip with your family. And what it does is it helps them to get that focus off of themselves because they come back and they say, "Man, we've got it really good."
Yes.
No?
Yeah.
And they'll be thinking about those kids that maybe didn't have it so good that they were helping to serve. So I always encourage parents. That's a great way. And it doesn't have to be a mission trip out of the United States. It could even be something as simple as going to a homeless shelter or a soup kitchen in your neighborhood or in
Yeah.
your community and just making a difference and saying, this is what we do. We're Millers, we're Stones, we're
Right.
Wilsons. This is who we are.
Yeah. When we were chatting before the podcast, we hit the record button. We were talking about your son, Sam, and that he is now a realtor. And my husband is also a realtor. So that's fun to talk about. But
Yes.
tell us where he lives now and the story
Oh,
behind
yeah.
that.
Oh, that's a really fun one because all of our grandchildren live out of town except for Sam and his wife. Their two kids lived in Louisville, and they were 30 minutes away from us. So, yes, they were here, but 30 minutes away, Arlene, when you have two little grandkids, that's a long ways away. And so we found ourselves wanting to help at times when it was just logistically, boy, it'd be handier if they lived 10 minutes away. So they told us after living there about 2 years, they said, "Hey, we're looking at a house and we've put an offer in on it." And we said, "Oh, great. Well, where is it? Let us see it." No, no. It said, we'll wait. And so we waited, and I said, "Okay, it's because they went." So we started looking at every listing all around within 15 minutes of us, trying to figure out, okay, could this be the one? Could this be the one? And then they said about a week later, they said, "Our loan's approved. Everything's going to go through. Everything looks good. Meet us at the mall in the parking lot, and we'll take you and we'll show it to you." So we're like, "Oh, this is awesome." So we're thinking, okay, it's got to be within 10 minutes or they wouldn't be making a big deal about it. And when we got in the car, Arlene, they blindfolded us.
Oh my God.
So
They're
now all
fun
of a
like you
sudden,
are. That's so
oh
funny.
man, now our hearts are pounding and we're like, okay, okay, what's up here? Well, they drove around. We knew where they were for about the first 3 minutes, and then he started doing donuts. He
Yeah.
just started doing circles and messed with our mind, got our equilibrium so thrown off. Yes, he is my son. So about 10 minutes later, pulls up,
Oh
stops the
my
car,
goodness.
and he says, "Okay, you guys can get out of the car." We get out of the car. They take the blindfolds off of us, and their house is 6 doors down from our house.
Oh my word.
Oh, I didn't tell you
Oh
that part of it
my
before the podcast.
goodness.
Oh, I mean, and
Oh
I know
my
that might not
goodness.
work for everyone,
Oh my
but
goodness.
it has worked really well for us. We are at almost 1 year,
Oh my word.
and I cannot tell you. the opportunities that we get to pour in just because of the closeness, and also hopefully to lighten their load in a lot of ways. And, it certainly doesn't hurt when I'm 64 years old having some kid down the street that I can say, can you come help me with my technology? Can you
Right.
come do this? Can you do that? Mom doesn't want me climbing on a ladder that high and reaching that high.
Yes.
She doesn't mind if you break your neck, but so yeah, it's been really cool. And I got to share the rest of this with you. I don't tell this very often. Um, but the reason we didn't think that we didn't even consider it was because we thought it was out of their price range. And so that's why it was never even on our radar screen that that would even be a possibility. And as only a dad can do, I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, Sam, are you sure that you can afford this? And he said, well, what if we can't? He said, if a year from now,
Oh,
he said, if in a year from now we have to sell it and move someplace else, I'll always be able to say, for 1 year, I get to live down the street from my parents.
oh.
So I'm like, okay, I'll make the payments.
Yeah, exactly. We're good. God's got that $200. He'll send it right on through. It's gonna be
Oh,
fine.
so
Oh
yeah,
my goodness
so
gracious.
it's been a blessing. And our other daughters, they have loved it. They've enjoyed it when they come to town. They enjoy going back and forth between the two houses, and it's really been fun for our entire family.
My goodness, that's amazing. So look at the things we get to look forward to have this
Yeah.
close relationship with our kids. That's what God wants for us. Dave, how can people find out more about you? Tell us about Pastor to Pastor and anything if people are like, I need to have more Dave Stone in my life. What
Uh,
do they do?
I'll tell you, if you have a friend that is in ministry or in some phase of Christian leadership or as a core volunteer at a church, I just would encourage them to check out Pastor to Pastor with Dave Stone. And they can go to Instagram at Pastor to Pastor Podcast.
Okay.
That's the Instagram handle,
Yep.
Pastor to Pastor Podcast. And it's wherever you get your podcasts.
Yep.
Don't stop listening to this one, but if you have someone that's in ministry, our goal is to encourage, inspire, and challenge, kind of like what you're doing, Arlene.
Yes. Awesome. We'll have that link in the show notes. Thank you so much, Dave. It's been such a joy.
Oh, you know how I feel about you. I always appreciate your writings, your speaking, your insights, and thank you so much for letting God use you to encourage so many moms and dads.
Thank you, Dave.